and you weren't sleeping or texting or emailing, I think it became really apparent that we're talking about consumption across multiple platforms, multiple screens, multiple input types, whether that's gesture or voice. So you're seeing the idea of playing everywhere on everything on demand. This year, especially, this morning we concentrated a lot on mobile, but do not discount the big screens which are coming into every home with rapid fury, and they're all smart screens of one sort or another. And if you're looking at channels like Roku and Hulu and Amazon and Netflix, you're seeing a huge opportunity to come play on big screens as a family together. Wearables. VTech in particular has been instrumental in bringing some of the wearables, Leapfrog as well, bringing some of the wearables that, whether it's a fitness band or whether it's a shirt that measures your caloric intake or your respiration or your heartbeat, you are the next computer. Your body is the next computer, and your interactions, how many Apple Watches are here? Your interactions with the world will right now be done one of two places, either your eye or your wrist. I have a slight preference for the wrist after living with Google Glass for a while. But you will start to see fabrics embedded with responsive technologies this year a lot, and you'll start to see the wrist and the eye go, by the way, to the next leap of wearables. 3D printing, we talked a lot about. It's getting less expensive, collaborative spaces, and that could be in your toy store, or it could be in your Radio Shack, or it could be in your Duane Reade, I think, or your college. I think 3D printers should be plentiful and everywhere, and we'll talk about that. We're going to talk, and I'm going to let Ed talk a little bit about the continuum between augmented and virtual reality that you're seeing this year. And the way I like to look at it, I fast forward to about 4 years from now, when you're sitting at the table with your kids saying, where would you like to go to college? You all slip on your oculi and you tour colleges all over the world together and pick them out. So that's the kinds of experiences I think we're going to be looking at. The maker movement skills, hugely important. And again, many of you are creating products that encourage exploration, owning something, making something, sharing something. It's a really exciting thing. Folks from Tokaboka talked about the end of gender specific recognition. This is a boy's toy, this is a girl's toy. I think the maker sensibility has gone a lot that way. And the maker sensibility will be the most important skill these kids can take out of their play and schools and into their jobs if we as a country and we as a world want to really be problem solvers. Robotics, we don't have any really good examples on the panel today, but this whole notion of learning programming through a physical thing that you tell what to do is a fabulous idea. Renee gave you some examples like Dot and Dash this morning. WowWee has some great programmable robots, certainly Lego Mindstorms, and Spin Master. Entrepreneurship. So, how many of you had a 7-year-old come to you with a new business idea in the last couple of months? I meet kids every day who are 15 and 16 who have the next idea for what's missing in this ecosystem. And if you look at, what was it, Rainbow Loom, if you look at the community that kids created of entrepreneurship and building things, just about the most non-tech toy in the world, I think that's pretty exciting. Social engagement and community, you're going to see a lot more. The mobile device, I will say, and kids' world in general, is fairly confined to me and the thing. The big screen is going to lend itself to other play patterns. And this year at CES, and the only reason I bring it up, we're actually doing a show for the first time that I'm really excited about called The Future of Money. And the premise is simple. The $5 that you have in your pocket today is going to be gone. It's going to be replaced by something. It may be a credit card, it may be a biometric sensor, it may be totally Minority Report. It may be a Bitcoin. But the kids' world has been dealing with this virtual currency for a long time. And I think it's important to realize that you're creating a generation who's really ready for this change and kind of understands that there's capital besides money, and it will be really interesting. So we're going to come back to discuss those, and I'm going to ask you to add any trends, but I wanted to talk for a minute about our panelists and introduce them. So we'll go to the next slide. I think I'll introduce them one at a time. Alice Taylor has done an amazing job of founding a company and a doll experience that is really personal. Fun fact about Alice, she just came back from Burning Man, so you have to ask her all about that. And she's going to explain the Makey Lab mentality, and then we'll go down the line from there. So welcome, Alice, and take it away.
Does this work? This does work. So, okay, now how do we get to another thing? Right, it is hotter in here than it was in the Black Rock Desert. I can tell you that much.
You have less bugs though, right?
Yeah, you have bugs, exactly. Okay, I'm Alice. We make Mickeys, which are 3D printed toys. And they are, as far as I know, the world's first 3D printed toy, because what we did was we pushed the whole 3D printing thing through toy safety certification. So they're EN 71 compliant and CE marked and line marked and all that kind of stuff, which meant that we can also sell them at retail. Having said that, so Makey started because we wanted to make, I'm a gamer, and I wanted to make toys that were like the experience of making avatars in a video game or building in a video game, all the things that I did a lot of, and I see a lot of kids doing a lot of in video games. And then I actually had the idea for this at Digital Kids in New York in 2010, because we were downstairs in a basement, not so hot, quite cool in February. And there were, people like Club Penguin talking about their millions and millions and millions of users creating and building and playing and stuff. And then you go upstairs, and it was the first time I'd ever been to a toy fair, and everything was very mass and non-interactive, and they were co-located but still separated by this big kind of fire escape, but mental wall. And I just kind of thought, I wonder why you can't, or maybe you can, make an avatar into a doll using 3D printing. I knew about 3D printing because I'm a giant nerd. So we set out to make the most creative doll in the world. The idea being that there would just be kind of gabillions of combinations. And it is the exact opposite of what happens at retail. So each Makey is printed on demand instead of mass-produced. Each one is assembled on demand. Each one is unique, like literally individualized. There's a UID in its head, and it has a digital avatar, so they're born digital and then marked physical. So you have to create something, then purchase it, as opposed to turning up in a store and buying what's on the shelf. And as a result, we're seeing a hell of a lot more variety than I think that you would see on a shelf, because as you all know, retail relies very much on what's popular before, because it's a bloody expensive way of learning the hard way that something isn't going to shift. So the way it works, I mean, maybe, where's that cool little camera? Yours?
Dead. Oh, wait.
Dead.
Dead. Oh, wait. No, dead because the PC is dead.
All right. I mean,
you don't have the sound.
I wonder if it's fast enough. I'll give you a really brief demo.
I'll walk around with whatever you want.
Really brief demo, just depending on how fast this. There you go. Oh yeah. Okay. So you basically go in and you do this, but you can actually go in and change. Let's do the eyes. You can change the physical position, and the color, and the eye shape, and the nose, and so you go on like this, and so each one is pretty darn different. And then we manufacture it for $74.99 and send it straight to you, and it takes 2 weeks. And it's really hard to do. I think there's no, we're the only ones doing it because it's bloody hard and expensive. I'll tell you about that later. So they kind of end up looking like this. We wanted to make dolls that, we wanted it to be a personal choice about what you wanted your doll to be like. I wasn't allowed dolls as a kid because my parents disapproved of pink fashion-y types. But, you know, that's, you can kind of only really get that these days, although MC Squared has turned up. But what I wanted was that you could, if you wanted pink and fashion-y, you could build it. If you wanted a doll with a wrench and an exoskeleton, you could build that too. So they're kind of hackable and stuff. And you'll notice that we sneak in STEM-y things wherever we possibly can. So there's always a spanner or a pirate thing or something going on. Our I Heart Math t-shirt is the most popular item that we have. And this is the end result. So they're really all kind of within an aesthetic, but each one is its own little character. And what you tend to find is kids make themselves, they make their friends, and then they make characters, and they'll make made-up characters, often kind of hybridized from what they know in the real world, or just made-up ones, and they make stories, and then they use the dolls to tell stories, and it's awesome. And we even do things like cute little accessories to make every kid feel like a superhero, because we can. So we've got canes and glasses, and we've got a wheelchair, and it works, but the cochlear implant was the #1 request, followed by type 1 diabetes monitors, which we also sell, which is really cute. And this is something we're working on at the moment, so it's the same platform, it's the same system, but it's yay big, and it goes back to the Toys to Life talk that we had this morning from Mike, was it? So in this particular case, we've built a system where you could build yourself to, in theory, insert yourself into the game. Obviously, that facility would have to be programmed into the game, and so at this point, we're looking to either build it ourselves or maybe talk to Activision or Disney or something. But we can kind of really see that there's going to be a really powerful future where kids can actually play as themselves instead of just only being able to play as other people's characters. And then the last bit about this is obviously when the 3D printers do actually enter the home, which is kind of only just beginning. I kind of feel like this is the 1996 of 3D printing. And so there are some really super early adopters out there, but it's definitely going to keep going. I think the first main printers in the home will actually be chocolate printers. But yeah, if kids want to make their own stuff, we put the files online for free so that they can do that. So that's basically what we do. I've got a couple of them hanging out here if you want to see what professional grade 3D printed stuff looks like. This is nylon powder, basically, so they're toy safe for the rest of it. But it's not the sort of stuff that you'd see off one of those desktop machines, and that's usually what surprises people because they're expecting that desktop stuff. Thank you.
So, since these things are so different, I think we're going to stop and ask for 2 questions from the audience just about 3D printing, because we'll be on to, go ahead, right there, first hand up.
Hi, so I love what you're doing, and I love that you're able to leverage girls' interest in customizing. I know there's a big push now in terms of promoting girls in STEM, but I'm just wondering if the girls themselves are actually coming up with some of these ideas to be dressing as scientists, to, have more geeky themed sort of accessories and clothes, or are they still, I hate to say it, but, creating things in pink and purple?
So, I would say that the vast majority are creating characters that generally look like people, and then there's a bell curve, and at one end is kids making characters in lab coats and kind of really techy, and the other end is super girly, and what they tend to do at that point is go and find like a Disney princess dress and kind of squeeze it onto a Makey, but Makey has a normal shoulder-waist hip ratio, so often they don't do up at the back, but there you go. But the majority of the bell curve just kind of swoosh through Instagram, and they'll just be colourful, weird, interesting, each one different characters. So there's no real trend. I mean, that was the thing. We put STEM in there, but we don't consider Makeys to be STEM dolls, because that in itself is a bit like keeping it in a box. And as far as I'm concerned, you can be a princess with a wrench in your pocket. I mean, Amelia Earhart is my hero. She's just freaking amazing. And that's the kind of person that we're sort of trying to say, look, here's the role model. Girls can be and do anything. You don't have to choose this box. You could just kind of mix and match. You could pit the wrench and the whatever, the wand, and what happens when you smash them together.
Oh, great.
Magic nuts and bolts.
And one more right there.
I'm wondering, how are you able to scale that very specific personalized dolls?
The scaling bit isn't as hard as you'd think. It's the price. Scaling the cost is the hard bit. So Until about a week and a half ago, they were $115, more like an American Girl price. And at the moment, you know, the sales are like, on the website, which is where we sell the majority of them, the conversion is about 1%, depending, and it peaks at about 3% if in a sale or around the holidays, something like that. So it's a pretty normal, kind of the same sort of conversion you get like online in an app or something, which is pretty good for that high price, right? But I think the price was a barrier, or what it is. Now we've just dropped it to $74.99, the conversion has doubled. And that's just been the past 2 weeks, we haven't told anybody yet. And the reason that we can do that is because we injection molded the body. Now, the people who've injection molded it for us haven't actually delivered the bodies yet, so we're just doing it for learning. But they will very, very soon, and then that's how we got the price down. And so, in practice, what will happen is it will be a hybrid model of on-demand and goods sitting in boxes, which at the moment we have an absolute minimum of. Most of what we have is a digital model in the shop, and we only make it when it's sold. But the bodies thing came in, so now we'll have boxes of bodies, but that also means we can bring the price down. So then the printed bit will be the face, and one of these, this size face, you can print about 1,600 of these overnight on one of the big machines. We've got at least 5. We've got about 15 in our network. So yeah, I'm not worried about the numbers of, you know, the 3D printed bit.
So it's a really good question. In the fashion industry now, they are freaking out because, you know, I might like Donna Karan, but I'd like it to fit me. But they like their 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 sizes because of mass production, because the cost of personalizing fashion gives them total agita. So it's a really good question, and I think it will come up in some of the other things too. So we're going to move on from 3D printing. We'll come back to it sort of as we wrap up. And we're going to look at coding. And Shrini, if we can move down to, right, and remember to tweet at Making Labs, at Tinker. Keep tweeting for these guys who are doing such a great job. Shrini has a way of looking at kids who code at a very young age and doing it in a way that's just delightful because it mixes the physical and digital world. So I'm going to let him speak.
Hi, so I'm Srinivas Mandyam and I'm the CTO of Tinker. We teach kids to code, and we do that with a visual platform. How many of you have heard of Tinker? Okay, so I don't have to introduce too much. So it's the fun way to learn programming, and the way that we do that is by using Lego-like blocks. And if you notice, we always make it really fun for kids. In this particular adventure, it's called Dragon Journey. So what kids need to do is, hatch a baby dragon and train the dragon to hunt for treasure. And if you notice, there are blocks like breathe fire, and so what they're actually doing is solving a puzzle, but the way that they solve the puzzle is actually using code. So we introduce them to all the coding concepts like repetition and variables and functions and all of those boring things, but it's in a scenario-based learning environment. So everything that you learn in Tinker will be in some journey or some quest that they need to complete. And coding is the only way that they're able to move ahead. And we've found that to be really, really successful with kids, starting from ages 7 and up. But if you want to go younger, they just need to know how to read. So we've seen 5-year-olds also learn coding, but our recommended age ranges start from 6 or 7 when they really know how to comprehend what they're reading. So Tinker is a maker platform. I mean, you heard a lot of things in the morning today with kids being exposed to so much of media, where they're passive absorbers of media. So what we want to focus on is try to get them to create with play. So with Tinker, they make apps, they can make mobile games, and we're also getting into the point where we are connecting them to physical things like drones and toys. And so all of these connected toys, it's really fun for a kid to make some drone fly and flip, and then they're actually doing that with code. So we're getting into a lot of that. So we're supported on Android, iOS, and all the browsers. So we are platform agnostic. We pretty much work everywhere. And the other good part about Tinker is that they start off with blocks, but there's always code behind the blocks. So we're supporting. We're trying to get them to go into coding in the real text way, which it really is. Like a mainstream coding language like JavaScript or C would be text-based. So we don't want them to do something with blocks and think that that's it, right? So we want them to know that there's code behind the blocks. So at any point, they can always look at the code behind the blocks. And we also support languages. We currently support JavaScript, and we've also prototyped Swift. So they're able to, look at their logic and see it in real programming languages. And kids are able to build awesome games with Tinker, and that's and also school projects like that solar system that was built by a third grader, with 10 or 20 lines of code. So we have amazing tools. They can build top-down games, platformers. They can customize their own characters, build their avatars. And so we make it really fun so that there is engagement. There's about 26 million kids who have started using Tinker all over the world. We're not localized, so we're only in English. So you see a lot of usage in most of the English countries, English-speaking countries. We're also in about 30,000 schools. So our product for schools is a freemium product. So schools use it and get about 6 to 8 hours of lesson plans and curriculum for free. And if they want to be serious and if they want a curriculum from the younger grades all the way to grade 8, we have more than 200 to 250 hours of content that we have lesson plans and actual curriculum which maps to CSTA standards and Common Core that they use. And of course, we are also in other camps and after-school sites, like Sylvan Learning uses Tinker to teach coding in all their centers, and we work with several camp providers. So our focus is to build a fun curriculum, and our primary customer is the kid. So we want to make sure that every child doesn't get frustrated and actually has a really good experience learning coding. And so in this particular conference, what I wanted to do is a demo of how somebody could use code to fly a drone. And this is a Parrot drone.
Yeah, just come. You want me to hold the mic? What do you want me to hold?
No, I think I'm good. So I'm going to just start it up here. And this is an Ollie from Sphero. You guys are familiar with Sphero and Parrot, right? So these are the guys who make the BB-8 also. Okay.
We had this all set to be projected for you when the camera went crazy, so apologies. You're going to have to peer down the seats.
So the way this is going to work is I launched the Tinker app, and I have these two objects here on my iPad. And of course, you could use an iPad or an Android tablet here. And there's code blocks here, and the code. What I've done is I've said on start, take off, and when I click that, or when I touch the actor, then do a flip. So that's what we'll try. So there it is, and I'm going to just touch it and it flips, right? And so that's the drone, and then you could also connect to the Ollie, and so the connection there is on Bluetooth. So I'm going to first change its color, maybe make it green, and then it's going to try to go in a square. Basically, I have a loop here where it rolls forward, turns right, and then does that 4 times, so it'll draw a square. So it's sort of like
Not your turn. Turn it off stage.
yeah. So there it goes, turning, and then Of course, you can connect to all the devices at the same time, so it's all Bluetooth. How was it planning that?
Always somebody trying to upstage the act, right? So, questions about kids, coding, makers, anything for Shrini before we move on? One in the first row.
So, what is the monetization model? You mentioned curriculum for schools if you exceed a certain amount of hours, but what else outside of that? How do you monetize?
So, Tinker, so we sell courses that parents buy. So, at Tinker, we have a home product. So, if you are, let's say you have a 6 or 7 year old, you can buy a course, and a course is $50 and you have access to it for life. So we have parents buying courses for kids on Tinker, and we all of those are age-based. So we have some. There's one called Glitch Manor. So that's like a haunted house, solve a mystery kind of thing. That's for about 6 or 7 year olds. Then we have one called Turing's Tower. Turing's Tower is you're helping Professor Turing beat Enigma, the evil dragon, right? And then you do that all with code. And then there's Goblin Quest. So those are the starting courses that we have, and then after that they can go and make more and more courses. And of course, whatever, so every time kids do a course, they probably have a portfolio of about 50 apps that they build. And they can put it on the iPad and and on Android, and if they want, eventually we'll allow them to be able to publish them also.
Any other? Yeah, right there.
So when you're scaffolding their learning this way, do you find that learning how to code with this platform transfers to more broad, like other languages or just problem solving in general?
Yeah, I mean, there's two things, right? One is that they get really frustrated with syntax. I mean, there's one comma missing, and then they don't know how to go forward, and they get bored, and they might go back to Minecraft. This is not bad, but I'm just saying that we want to make sure that we keep them engaged, right? So that's why we chose the visual block-based programming. It's just like Lego. You connect blocks and you make things work in a digital way, right? But then, we do transfer the learning to a lot of other domains. Like, for example, we have, for school, we have, STEM libraries, like hundreds of projects like solar systems and water cycle. And let's say you wanted to make a story about Amelia Earhart or Abraham Lincoln, so you would do that. And in third grade, a homeroom teacher would use that, right? So there's a lot of options for teachers to use it in whatever they're teaching. If they're teaching about the Ohlone Indians, and they make a project around that instead of doing a diorama. So a lot of schools do that, without us prompting them with lessons and everything. I mean, they do that themselves.
Okay, so we'll come back again at the end. I want to introduce our next speaker, so we'll go back to the other switcher. And thank you, Shrini. That was amazing to build a platform that you love and then figure out how you're going to monetize in so many different ways. I can see getting a Tinker kit every month. Ariella de Llera, the company is Legacy Games, and for good reason. She sort of has one legacy after another of firsts in this industry, and she's here to talk again today about some firsts that she's doing in the emerging tech world. So I'll turn it over to Ariella. And yeah, now you're going to run her slides.
It's all right.
And for some reason we have no red bulb, I think, so everything's a little bluish gray. Not their fault, nobody's fault. The heat.
I'll just start.
No, back to go back to emerging trends. The PowerPoint. Yep.
The whole presentation is in
Yeah.
there?
Just.
I'll start talking. I'm the CEO of Legacy Games. We're a small developer design and development company based in Los Angeles. You can go ahead to the next screen. Thank you very much. I'm not going to talk to you about all the different things that we do. I'm just going to focus on the things we're doing in the kids space, and specifically with new technologies. The basic theme for today is 3D image capture, which will bring us back to 3D printing eventually. the first thing I wanted to talk about is the Sprout HP platform. I'm not sure if any of you, if you're familiar with it. It's been out about a year. We've done 2 projects for the Sprout, and if you haven't seen it, I recommend that you do take a look at it. It's a very cool piece of hardware. It has 2 screens, a vertical and a horizontal screen, both of which are touch sensitive, and it incorporates the Intel 3D RealSense camera, so that anything that you put on the horizontal mat can then be captured in now 3D. When we were working on it last year, it was 2D, so that anything then can be captured and brought into the activity. The first, I guess you can see it there on the right, the first app that we did for them was Crayola Color Draw and Sing, and the big conceit is that you could take a water bottle, you could take a starfish, you could take whatever you had at home, put it on the mat, and then incorporate it into this coloring book and make it into a sticker. So that's the kind of little bit trivial use of this very expensive, powerful 3D camera. The second product we did for the Sprout is Crayola DJ. So it's a music mixing app. At 100 loops, you pitch, you beat match, you pitch match, you incorporate your music, blending it, mixing it like a real DJ. And the way we used the Sprout was we had the performance mode, which is the dancers responding to your music on the vertical screen, and then you had your DJ activities on the horizontal. So this is an example of what I really like about the Sprout is it's essentially the front end for a 3D printer, as you might imagine, because where they're going with that is anyone in the home then can capture, you know, your favorite action hero on the mat and then send it off to your 3D printer. So that's where this particular platform is going, and I think it offers a lot of opportunities for developers. And HP is still looking for more content for their ecosystem. So we could keep going. That's the Color Draw and Sing, and that's the DJ app. And the next thing I wanted to talk about was Intel RealSense, or what they call perceptual computing. How many of you are familiar with this? So we worked with Intel for the last 10 years. They're just a great partner. And one of the, I've been in business 30 years. This is my 3rd company. We've been around since '98. I run a small software company. I know how hard it is to stay in business and to ride, you know, all the rocky roads of platform transitions and everything else. And one of the ways that we have been able to thrive is by selectively picking some of these new technologies and having really good partners like Intel and good brands like Crayola to bring to these platforms. So in terms of the RealSense camera, what we did first with it was to create, it's called Crayola Bubbles. It's actually, that game is coming out in the next few weeks on Android and iOS, but this version takes advantage of the Intel RealSense camera so that you're able to control the game using gestures. It has very good voice recognition as well as face recognition. So all of those are incorporated in that version of the bubble game. You can imagine you're popping bubbles and you're slashing bubbles and you're playing a variety of different games. The really cool thing, and again, the next step behind this 3D camera, is that it's going to be incorporated in many, many Windows as well as Android tablets, so that with the new real-facing camera that Intel, the SDK is out there for any developer who wants to take a look at it. And so what that means is you'll be able to use that camera to look at the world around you and capture the world around you in 3D. Now that opens up a whole lot of options. I'm sure your mind's already thinking about augmented reality, for example. How can I actually superimpose a visual image on an object in my environment unless I know what that object is? Especially with increased machine intelligence, we're going to be able to recognize this as a bottle of water. And we're going to know where all the edges are. We're going to know the contours of it. because this camera takes it all in, and therefore then we can superimpose images on top of that real world, which is the essence of augmented reality, and one of the reasons why it makes it so difficult, to do, even as opposed to virtual reality, I think. So I think you want to go on from there. This is the most proud of the beautiful 3D bubbles in this game. They're quite pretty. And then the next thing, the last thing I'll end on is, again, talking about image capture. So we started to get really interested in 3D printing. And one of the things, one of the pain points, and Alice mentioned this briefly, is that it's not as easy as one would hope it would be. So you go home with that under $1,000 printer, and you make a lot of mistakes and waste a lot of money on filament. Things don't work out the way you think they should. Oh, I'm just going to download this file from the internet, print it out, and everything is good. And it never works that way. So our company, we do sell a lot currently to Walmart, a lot of PC games. And so I was very interested in, what other types of retail products can we sell into that channel. And so we came up with the idea of 3D print kits. This is a sample box. It's not the real box. It won't be coming out for another 2 weeks, so this is hot off the press. But what we're doing here is we're including the components that you need to actually complete this project. The first one in the series is a desk clock. There are 3 different models. You mix and match. Everything clips together. It's foolproof. You don't need any glue. It just comes out the way it's supposed to the first time. At least that's the theory. We've done a lot of testing. Works on all the printers, even the smaller form factors, 4x4x4. So we're going to put this out there. The next one in development now is make your own guitar. I think the third one will be a microscope. And so there's a good market for this. Right now, one of the most vibrant markets is in the schools, as you might imagine, because they want their kids to be able to use 3D printing. So one of the ways we hope to go with this is to start adding curriculum materials for those projects where it seems to make sense. And there are certainly some retailers who are selling 3D printers. You can walk into select stores, Best Buy, Staples, Sam's Club. They have a selection of different 3D printers. So we'll see how it goes. This is an experiment, but we think that there's a need right now in the marketplace for something simple like this. That's it.
Make sure to tweet in your new announcements that you saw previewed here first. It's always great to hear you because every step of the way, from detail, from the detail of who to partner with to what the box should look like to how to get it in the store, she really has incredible expertise. Any questions about any of Ariella's projects, either augmented or 3D printed? If not, we will come back. Do I see any hands? Yeah. So we're going to move down to our last presenter. Ed is from ZSpace. And Ed will explain, but ZSpace falls somewhere in the middle of augmented and virtual reality, and he will give you a demonstration of how that works. And maybe he'll do that virtual fan, because I see everybody going like this. So, Ed, go ahead.
Thank you. So as I'm sure everyone in this room knows, education in the United States, and really the world for that matter, is changing dramatically with the introduction of new and novel technologies into schools. I mean, schools right now have some of the coolest stuff that you've never used, but kids in school are using them right now. And all these different technologies, especially in the VR and AR space, are finding their way into schools and into curriculum, and all doing different things, right? We were Robin was talking about this sort of conversation about AR and VR and real-world virtual reality, and what does that mean? I'm going to show a video in a second, by the way, if I can get it all hooked up. It's a little promotionally. It's students in school using ZSpace, but I think it's the best way to communicate what it is the ZSpace is and what it does. But in terms of that spectrum, you have those VR immersive environments, whether it's an Oculus or Cardboard, that are allowing students and teachers in classrooms to be transported across the world, whether it's the Great Wall of China or some forest somewhere, and really be immersed in all of this. Well, it's magic, really, but immersed in the real world in the classroom, right? And so that technology is doing that, and iPads and iPhones and digital mobile devices are allowing kids and students to take technology with them. What ZSpace has done, though, is we've solved two problems that are very difficult in that environment. One is interaction. So whereas in a head-mounted display or an Oculus, you are currently really limited in how you can interact with the world around you. There are solutions, there are different technologies that allow for it. It's emerging, right? In 10 years, they'll have it totally solved, right? So it's coming. But what we do with the ZSpace, so this is our ZSpace 300. Again, it's not something you're going to be able to enjoy from all the way over there, but that's why we use the video. But kids, students, whomever, use this stylus to interact essentially with 3D objects in front of them. So you can dissect a frog, you can work on a circuit board, you can use it to study human anatomy and look at a heart beating and that kind of thing, and dissect a brain to see tumors on the inside or what have you. And so having that interaction with 3D in this one-to-one sense really is what sets what we do apart, as well as collaboration. So again, in that AR, VR spectrum, where AR sort of is open world visualization of 3D, whether it's using glasses or some other technologies, or the head-mounted, really true VR space, kids can collaborate at a ZSpace together. They can take turns, they can talk with each other, they can talk with teachers. So it's allowing for this collaborative engagement with technology. So I'm going to try to put the video on because it'll make a whole lot more sense, and we'll go from there. So if I could have 3 and this board, I think we can do it.
This is like a collaborative effort.
Yeah. It's the next big thing.
Yeah.
Is it long enough? Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you. And while you're doing that, you do wear goggles, 3D glasses, just those inexpensive 3D glasses, correct? To view the screen? There we go.
So essentially, in a loose way, you're using 3D glasses, much like you would in a movie theater, but the technology is a little bit different. But they're passive. They're like lightweight sunglasses, so you can see, you can talk with people, you can look at your cell phone, and so I think I'm good. Let's open a quick time here. Hopefully the sound works. We'll see. Yeah, look at that.
Revolutionary technology is coming to a classroom.
Slide it over. So what do we want?
Yes. Yeah.
No? Close. It was close, folks. One more second.
If you hadn't noticed, we're going for close in this demo. We've given up on like perfection.
Yeah. Close is good enough. Let's see here. Sorry. So, and so to talk to us, we're focused on STEM education in school, right? So we're working on a variety of. I'm not going to be able to actually do that while I'm. All right. Oh, that's working. Mirror. Show mirroring options. Anyone can shout out the correct solution here. Yeah, display. Yeah, go ahead. I will allow anyone else to drive this. Thank you.
So basically, by wearing passive polarized lenses, there are 5 trackers around the corners of the glasses. Standing in front of the display here, I can literally pick up objects with my stylus and see it moving right here in open space. It's literally floating outside the screen here. We're in over 250 school districts, medical, and university schools today. And students are using this from all the way down to grade 3, all the way again through medical and higher education. So what we do at ZSpace is a number of things. One, from developing curriculum and all of our lessons plans and activities are aligned to next generation science standards, if you're familiar with that, both in the K-12 space.
All right, this is a
Revolutionary technology is coming to a classroom near you. I don't care if you're a medical school student or high school student.
Schools across the country are using this
Captivating new learning tool.
It's revolutionizing education. Tell us how.
This is a 3D immersive virtual learning platform, and it's called ZSpace.
We found out about it, we all trampled each other to get towards the door so you can get on the computer first.
Put on our 3D glasses, wow, and we just started seeing what we can create.
Our 5th grade teachers during professional development from ZSpace were able to collect and put together a folder with all the lab experiences that they wanted to share.
And the lesson planning that went behind this, it really brings it to life. I can have kids engaged.
We live in a 3-dimensional world and we teach in a 2-dimensional world. Being active and involved in the learning and using all of the senses provides a much deeper experience and a much more long-lasting learning.
Awesome.
Very cool.
So we've got just a few minutes left, and I'd love to open it up for questions to all of the panelists or to the audience takeaways about their thoughts on augmented on emerging technologies. Questions? Okay, way up there. I'll repeat it.
Yeah, I just had a question about the internal real sense and these real-life inputs. In the example, it's essentially bubbles in a park. Obviously, we do that in the real world. A lot of times I'm seeing these things where we're using unnatural patterns like standing in front of a screen to get a kid to make a thing happen. How is that taking digital into that space? What is it really adding beyond the actual physical? Because that's a challenge. Because a lot of times you see these examples, you know, that's interesting, and you realize why you just don't go bubbles in front. So I'm just kind of curious about how we've had that problem. A lot of these things are having that problem. It's not natural.
Right. It's sort of with some apps, for example, it's a solution in search of a problem, I think is what you're saying. That's why we came up with the Bubbles idea specifically for this interface, because we thought it was a very natural way to interact with Bubbles. On the other hand, I've seen other apps that were created for the platform that I thought it'd be so much easier just touching, the screen. I'm actually much more excited about the real world facing camera and the applications that are manifold there, frankly.
And what I'd add, right, is there are tons of emerging capture technologies, whether it's on your phones or some devices from Google or all over the place, being able, once you capture, right, being able to get models of things around you and bring them to your computer, right? And then the RealSense cameras, which are fantastic, right, allow for the capturing, but they also allow for gesture recognition, facial recognition, all of these other things that can be used in conjunction with that capturing in very interesting and engaging ways. So, yeah, I think there's a lot more to the story than simply, how you're sitting at the device.
Yeah, I just was at a RealSense demo of some of the app developers, and it is mind-blowing. There's storytelling where you are immersed, using your voice, using your gesture, moving from levels. There's cognitive training. There's physical rehabilitation going on, where it's tracking your movements. So it's sort of Intel's idea, and it's not the only one doing it, is to bring all of these interfaces, natural interfaces, to the product the size of your laptop.
Well, and they have hundreds and hundreds of engineers working on this, and we've seen tremendous progress in the last year with the technology. So my favorite app example at the developers conference you're alluding to was, speaking of Minecraft, so the one developer was able to take their favorite action figure and bring it into Minecraft, using the RealSense cameras. So that was a very cool example of what you can do.
One more question.
So does RealSense actually use voice recognition as part of the camera? That's part of the
Yes, voice recognition, face recognition, and gestures are the way you currently interact with it, but they're looking for applications in the real world facing market as well.
Do you find their voice recognition to be good?
The question is, how is the voice recognition?
Yeah. Well, it's funny with kids. Well, it's funny with kids, you know, the high pitch, that was an issue, so we worked with the engineers to get them to recognize the high pitch. How about little children's hands? That didn't work at first, so we had to go through some iterations to make sure that smaller hands would work. We found the voice recognition pretty much is on a par with Google, which I think has the best, at least in our experience.
So first, before we go any further, can we hear it for these pioneers? My takeaway from all this is pretty simple. The bar has never been lower or more affordable to dabble. The question in these emerging technologies, the question is how to do it with the sensibility that pervades your product and not getting too far afield and grabbing onto, like was said this morning, every platform and every technology just for the sake of being there. So I hope you'll continue this discussion, and I hope that you'll think about your own products and how we can use some of these emerging technologies to kind of flip what you do into a whole new world. Thank you.